from Wayne some fine art, and this is the latest painting in my Anzac portrait series. This painting has just returned from Peninsula Village in Minor, where for the very first time all 6 portraits were exhibited together. This exhibit was held in conjunction with Peninsula Village's unveiling of their war memorial dedication. And this was made possible through the amazing work of Susie O'Donnell, who is pictured here with the Honourable General Peter Cosgrove and myself at the memorial. But more on that later. Now I'd like to present a man who served with the 6th Division Signals in New Guinea. He returned to Australia and joined the 2nd 9th Commando Squadron and headed back to New Guinea to fight the Japanese. He's a man that I am very proud to call a mate, Mr. Reginald Davis.
Yes, I'm Reg Davis, and this is part 2 of my story. It's from the 6th Division, yes, brown, red and green, signifying through mud and blood to the green fields beyond.
So you went to Brisbane, and
yes.
Then you were put onto a boat?
Yes, we were on the boat there. We went on to the SS Katoomba, old coal-fired boat, and on to Port Moresby. I think it was a 5-day trip going into there, and as we're sailing into Port Moresby Harbour, the Japanese planes were coming in bombing a ship there called the MacDouey, which they sunk. Yes, so they transferred it on from the Katoomba onto the naval destroyer, and the rudder drove us into during that period into Port Moresby Harbour. I was in the 6th Div Signals at this stage, and from there in Moresby there I was attached to the 7th Division, which did the tour across the Owen Stanleys there. The trail was 50 mile from Moresby to Kokoda, and another 30-40 mile from Kokoda down to Buna. The track was a 2 feet to 4 feet wide in places, covered in thick impenetrable jungle, and every now and again we come across this Guinea grass, which was about 6 feet tall, came to a point, and the blade of the grass was razor sharp. When I say that, of course, if you touch it, you've got to cut. Through, then every few miles we come across thick jungle, and we'd go through moss forests. There's this type of jungle there, which you couldn't see the daylight out of, so impenetrable. Lawyer vines to stop us going through. Green tree snakes would drop from the trees around our necks there. Huge leeches, which we were off the track with the big spider webs. Every now and again we come across the Guinea grass again, then deserted native villages, and then onto more mud, through little down creeks there, which flowing fast flowing, huge boulders, logs across the river there, deserted native villages again, human foulings everywhere. What else? And then every afternoon, about 3 o'clock, it would rain. Steady rain till right through the heavy rain during the night time. So and that was the trip. And through the mountains went up to 8,000 to 10,000 feet, down to 3,000 or 4,000 feet, then up again, then down again. That's the picture. I'll give you an overall picture of what the Kokoda Trail was all about. Of course, we get across in Kokoda there, and then on to down to the beaches there, onto Saputa, Popondetta, and then on to Gona. And we're brought out of that. Brought out of there. And we got a horse, and we put all our gear on the horse. And as the Americans were coming in by the plane there, and as they're getting off there, I sold my horse to them for 10 shillings again, 10 shilling, 10 to the Yanks there, so they'd put their army gear packs and that on the horse to take it up there. And then we got on the plane and come back to Port Moresby, and from Port Moresby back to Australia. The 6th Division Cavalry had come back from the Middle East, and they came up to the northern tablelands in Queensland. And we were at a place called Wandekla. My army unit was the 6th Division Seagulls were stationed there at the time, being a part of the 6th Division there. They were calling for volunteers for the Commandos, so I went up and had an appointment with the Colonel, and having my qualifications, and been to New Guinea, and with my as a signaller there, they says yes, we'll take you on into the unit. So from there I went to another school, the Commando training school. This is where unarmed combat comes in, and what else I can say, more highly trained weaponry, Owen guns. I had an Owen gun with the twin mag. The magazines held 32 rounds, but so the chamber wouldn't get stuck, we only used to put 28 bullets into it. All these highly, experience that we need to have. The regiment moved to the part of the divisional campaign in the A-to-B-Wewak campaign, which was in October 1944 to August 1945. The regiment took part in the campaign to oust the Japanese 18th Army from the Wewak area, and my regiment was a part of this show. The first part there, we went to a village outside 3 days' march from Ottawa, just up near the Dutch border, and on landing during the afternoon we came across the Americans who were waiting for the planes to come over for their food, and as the containers came down, opened one up there, it was all full of ice cream. We thought it was great there having ice cream for dinner, yes. Ottawa was the main base there. We used to get, as coming out of patrolling there, we got 2 bottles of beer per month. Got out 2 bottles of beer, and I took my ration across to the Americans there, and I exchanged it for Wrigley's chewing gum and some candy. Commandos, once again, was really scouting for the infantry, bringing back reconnaissance is the word they use, bringing back information about the enemy so that the infantry with their battalions can move forward to capture the position. We had 3 types of patrolling. Fighting patrol, where it was search and destroy. Reconnaissance, to go into an area there but not be seen, to bring out back information. And thirdly was the ambush. We'd set up an ambush along a track there with our Bren guns and Owen guns, and then as the Japs come along the track there, bang, the firepower would be so bang, bang, bang. That'd be every day. Now we're talking about a period now from October 44 to August 45. As our patrol there, we would establish observation posts where someone would go forward 100 yards or a couple of yards, whatever it was there, allocated, and just hide. No speaking or talking or smoking, and just listening. They'd count how many natives there were amongst the Japanese, how many, what sort of weapons they had, any types of trucks or cars, what sort of weapons they were using and their equipment, the type of gardens they had there for their food, and then come back to patrol, and we report that back to headquarters so they could, at times, on ambush patrol, one would be out in front there, and we'd, how did you see that? That's what they call the sound of a rabbit caught in a rabbit trap. Can you visualise now? So the rabbit's caught in the trap. He's screaming out, and the fox jumps up and grabs him. So this is called a fox whistle. Uses the same thing for the Japanese. And then, as you can visualise, all guns, everything bloody through, it would hit them. This was the... I used to play this. That one there. And the Jews part, I'd play to keep myself amused in the night time. And now this is the... And the tornado. These are the like little tin whistle there. My mother used to get sick of sending them to me because I used to lose them. But that's gone. I can't play this properly because they're not sticking together. No, it's not. So just to play that one there too. So that's the little things I used to amuse myself at night time or on patrol. You're doing nothing there. How about the conditions in which the fighting took place? I remember a silent, muddy, root-infested tracks with death traps, with hot and cold days and nights, fever, disease, and miserable discomfort, and the ever-ready, cunning, fanatical and brutal enemy. But all this was overcome by our good patrolling and our good companionship with the fellows there, and success. Right. This is the Battle of 1,000 Stitches there. Each young fellow wore one of these there, knitted, stitched by the maidens of the village. The idea was to ward off evil spirits, because the Japanese believed in many gods, but the chief god was their emperor. We took part in the amphibious landing at Dove Bay, which is south of Wewak, and racing up on the barge. I can remember we got off the barge and the general was there to wave us goodbye, and we said, "Hello, Walker, you old bastard." And he just grinned back and looked at us there, the general. Some of the Japanese were escaping down towards the Sepik River, the large river which ran into the Tasman. Some were infiltrating into our lines, and the Allied intelligence people formulated a password for each day of the week. Because the Japanese couldn't pronounce the W's or L's, they had words with the W's or L's in them. For instance, Lali Lulu. Another was Lovely Legs. Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister. Wendell Willkie, he was an American announcer on the east coast of America. We had William Wordsworth, who was a British poet. Woolworths. And then Woollamaloo. And of course we used to sing the song, Woollamaloo. Want to sing the song? Yeah. And it goes, W-O-O-L-L-O-O. M-O-O-L-O-O. Upon my word, it's true. That's the way they spell Woollamaloo. I'll bet you $1 there isn't a scholar that can spell it right. First go, so W-O-O-L-L-O-O. M-O-O-L-O-O. And the boys used to mouth marvellous. We used to get around singing this bloody word W-W-W-L-L-O-O. After many patrols, the atom bomb was dropped, and we couldn't understand what it meant. We thought it was little laboratories that they had dropped over Japan, and didn't realise that it was a chain reaction. But then 3 days later, they dropped another bomb on Nagasaki. On the 15th of August there, a ceasefire was announced, and the fellows, our forward scouts, said, well, who's going to tell them? Because we've had our story that the ceasefire would stop at 11 o'clock on the 15th of August, but who's going to tell the Japanese? They had no newspapers, they had no radio, so At 11 o'clock we were ordered to stand still. On the day on the surrender, it was a parade formed where 3,500 of the every unit in the 6th Division took place. They formed a hollow rectangle with the fellows shortest in the front and tallest in the rear. There was nobody under 5'10", fixed bayonets, and when the Japanese party arrived, they marched up the strip, were escorted by 4 big provo fellows, 6'6" provos. And as they marched up to the table, they stopped and they saluted our General Red Robbie Robertson. The Colonel said, "General Darcy, you will now surrender your sword." The Japanese interpreter with him there, and he did yabba 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 yabba. And General Robertson said to him, "General Darcy, you will now surrender your..." He yelled out, "Surrender your sword!" Which must have been the last straw, because he took it out and handed the sword over.
Thank you, Rich, for sharing your story with us all, and thanks everyone for watching.